for joining. And with our sixth town hall, we're going to welcome our negotiating team, as well as everyone who has taken the time to join in and listen and find clarification and understanding as it relates to our TA2. So a little bit of housekeeping. I start every town hall now with the ask that if you are reading your TA2, we do have Canvas supplementals that can be found on our b6.tw.org website, as well as all of the previous town halls. They are also on the website and also on our YouTube channel, b6twifcs. You can also go there. So we're going to get started with our article unpacking. That's all I had for our housekeeping. We're going to start with Ernesto. Ernesto is our Orlando negotiating team representative. He's going to be unpacking article 37. That is duration in our hymnals, page 166. And I'm going to pass it to Ernesto. Good afternoon, Ernesto.
Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, I promise you this is not my bathrobe that I'm wearing. I literally finished teaching jiu-jitsu class. I usually teach Saturdays 12 to 1. So I had one of the other instructors do me a favor and close out the last 5 minutes so I could come in here and log in. So again, I apologize about the appearance of the storage room, but it's the quietest place I could find here at the dojo location. But to be anyway, just a quick, if anything, this is a testament to the fact that a lot of us in-flight crew members wear more than one hat, right? There's plenty of us. Not only are we first responders on the aircraft, but we're also first responders, outside of the airline industry. We have both active and retired first responders, nurses, active and retired, and also our teachers that are educating our youth. So, a lot of us, and then a very small percentage of us teach jiu-jitsu. So, and I'm happy to be a part of that. So nonetheless, respect to everybody, especially our military personnel, for the many hats that we wear. And in addressing contract duration, so our duration is 5 years. And I know that this previously was an area of concern when we were negotiating our first sensitive agreement. Again, and while those circumstances that we negotiated under were different than today, a 5-year duration is very standard, for the airlines that we are pretty much shoulder to shoulder with, let alone coming off a potential first contract, as I hope that this would be for us. I also, remember in the company previously being eager to seek a 7-year contract. So, we managed to find a medium and get a 5-year. And of course, something I don't want us to overlook, we do get a 6-month early opener, so we can start negotiation process again for our, would be second contract at that given time. So again, like I said, although the areas although we're not under such fragility of circumstances as we were last time around, a 5-year duration is pretty much standard, for airlines, at least in today's age. Nonetheless, like I said, there's not much else to it, other than, that's what we were able to negotiate. And again, starting with a 6-month early opener at 180 days, if I remember correctly, which is equivalent to 6 months. And then from there, we could just start negotiating again for what would be our second contract. Well, and obviously the objective is always to improve, to keep bettering and keep doing upgrades. So thank you.
All right, that was Ernesto about duration. As a housekeeping note, again, 5 years is industry standard. In our TA2, there are significant major structural changes like the FLICA, AM, PM, as well as reduced credit flying. We need to allow for the contract to breathe and those implementations to happen, and then to gain that stability from those implementations, hence the 5-year duration again. You can find that in Article 7, your duration, also on your Canva for supplemental reading. I'll be placing that link in the chat shortly. Moving on, we're going to go to Article 18. Article 18 is uniform.
Aisha?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, I'm going to respectfully go off camera so that I can change out of my kimono. And then I'll be listening on the side in the meantime. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
On my bathroom.
Thank you, Ernesto, for your clarification. All right, so we're going to move on to uniform. Article 18, that's going to be page 88. I'm going to hand that off to Dee while I start putting links in the chat. Thank you, Dee. Dee is our Fort Lauderdale amazing rep on behalf of our negotiating team.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for this town hall. And I would like to let you know that Article 18 uniforms, we were able to codify the language existing. And I'm just going to highlight some of the things that we're able to codify. So we also added one thing. When I get to the end, I'll tell you what that is. The standard uniforms in Article 18, you'll wear them at all times while on duty, but you will not be required to wear your uniform while deadheading. We were able to codify that the company will bear the cost of the first required uniform pieces and luggage so that our new hires will not in the future during this contract duration have to pay for their uniform pieces, which we all know is a great savings. At other airlines, they do have to pay up to $800, which is actually, it could be more than 800. It could be anywhere between 800 and 1200, and that's payroll deducted. So if the company elects to replace a retired uniform piece, example, like they're no longer permitting them to be worn, then the company at its expense shall provide the in-flight crew members with new uniform pieces and any required accessories. If available through the uniform business partner, the company will provide size-specific uniforms in all petite, standard, and tall sizes in the bases for in-flight crew members to try on should there be a complete cutover of the required uniform. Under your uniform allotment, we will continue to receive credits of $200 to your uniform account each year on your original company date of hire, and you may choose to accrue up to $400 in your uniform account if unused. Be careful not to let it go over that $400 because then you won't get your next allotment of $200. The company will continue to furnish our wings to be worn by the flight attendants, and the union will be given notice of the company's intent to change a required uniform or any portion of their at least 30 days prior to that changeover. The company will confer with the uniform committee and consider its recommendations before making any changes in the style, color, or material of the uniform. In addition, the company will consider the recommendations of our Union Health and Safety Committee chairperson in regards to materials available, including applicable FAA or NTSB flammability standards. We also will have one representative from our union on the uniform committee. We will have to, upon resignation or termination of employment, return all of the uniform pieces and any company issued electronic devices to the company. If an in-flight crew member is medically proven to be allergic to the materials used in the required uniform, the company will attempt to identify what the allergen is and provide a uniform constructed of an alternate material that will not cause an allergic reaction. In the event that an in-flight crew member's luggage is stolen through no negligence of the in-flight crew member from the aircraft while on duty, while on company provided transportation, or from the crew hotel, the company will, at the company's expense, replace the uniform items and company required accessories, provided documentation satisfactory to the company is provided, including police reports for stolen luggage from the crew hotel. If the contents of the stolen luggage includes the in-flight crew member's company issued electronic device, the company will replace it at no cost or penalty to the in-flight crew member. All uniform pants will be available for purchase in a minimum of 3 lengths. And the company will ensure that the uniform account balances will be made readily available to the in-flight crew members, and any discrepancies will be resolved in a timely manner. The price difference between petite, standard, and tall sizes will be the same for women and men. If non-standard sizes, petite and or tall, are not available from the uniform business partner, the in-flight crew members will be permitted to purchase any comparable in-flight uniform piece regardless of gender. And that specifically addresses some of our crew members are women crew members. We've had sports people. They have very tall and arms are long, legs are long. Our coats and things are not always made in tall, but perhaps you would prefer to wear a men's shirt, which comes in a specific length on sleeve sizes. You will be able now to order that shirt, have it tailored to fit you, and everything will be good. You'll have a sleeve length that truly fits you. And you know what? That was an important thing to me, because if you're not comfortable in your uniform when your sleeves are short, it can be a real problem. So that's the end of our uniform section. I hope you will find that satisfactory. I sure did.
All right, thank you, Dee. And as a housekeeping note, they really did codify equity and diversity and gender neutrality as it relates to our uniforms. There were a lot of language put in place that will help those who, as Dee said, are exploring what is comfortable and fits their body in ways that is empowering. So that concludes Article 18, uniforms by Dee. Our next article unpacking is going to be Article 13. That's going to be done by our Boston negotiating team representative, Sonia. Sonia is going to be handling bases. Good afternoon, Sonia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on this Saturday. So bases. This is the article that deals with how you bid for a base, how you're awarded your base, and what happens when new bases are created. So a lot of this is current language. Some of it was taken from the pilot's contract as well. So I'll just kind of go over some of the standard parts of it. So if the company plans to open a new base, which we are wink, wink, hoping they do, they'll need to let the union know at least 90 days prior to the opening of that base. Then you would follow the parameters of applying for that. We'll get to that a little bit later. You have to have a base. There's a certain line in there that says that pardon me. Okay, an IFC, regardless of seniority, must maintain system bids via electronic means. So what that just means is that you have to have a base. An IFC has to be associated with one of the 5 bases. So you couldn't just be out there as a floater. You have to have a base, and that electronic means just lists where you are in FLICA and crew track, so that when you bid, you're associated with the base. So there was some confusion with that one particular line there. Hope that cleared it up a little bit. The requests for system bid and base changes, as always, is based on seniority. So when the system bid goes out every month and you want to switch bases, the company will let you know exactly how many positions are available on each base. If there aren't any, someone would have to exit that base in order for you to be able to enter it. You cannot add any additional headcount just because you want to go to a base. And then, of course, if there are multiple openings, those will be awarded based on seniority. The base transfers still are 3 months. However, that does not apply to initial base assignment. So pretty much everything in that article is exactly the same as we're currently accustomed to. So mostly I want to focus on the co-bases, since that seemed to create a lot of chatter on social media as well as through our email. So firstly, Palm Beach. So Palm Beach has been a co-base for the pilots for quite some time. When we say that, it also means that at any time the company could have made it a co-base for flight attendants as well. So why they have not, we don't know, but they did want to ensure that that was put in there. Even though it does fall out of the 40-mile parameter, that there's other language about that. What that does state is that no new co-bases will be established greater than 40 miles. So again, this one kind of has been codified. Also, we just want to point out that we heard absolutely nothing about this in TA1, and this same language was in there as well, establishing Palm Beach as a co-base. So we have not heard really anything from our Fort Lauderdale crew members, some of which would probably enjoy a Palm Beach co-base as if they live closer to that airport. So just that's a little bit about Palm Beach. So the big one, of course, Newark. So what we'd like to just reiterate here is that our contract states that Newark will no longer be a co-base. And that's the language that was very important to us, as a lot of us experienced some real difficult commuting and being assigned, reassigned all sorts of things, having Newark as a co-base. So you don't see Newark mentioned as a base in this contract because, again, we have established only that it is no longer a co-base. Whether or not the company decides to make it a base, that would happen after ratification. So why you don't see Newark listed in commuting or training or anything like that, again, is that we are not establishing that it is a base. We are only establishing that it can no longer be a co-base. To touch on that a little bit further, so if the company does decide that Newark will become a base, this article will establish how you would bid for that. So again, it would be opened up to all crew members. Any new bases have to be opened up to all crew members to bid. It is then awarded on seniority. It's just kind of how it is. Everything works off of seniority here. So if people from other bases do want to come in and transfer there, that is up to them. That's how seniority works here. It will be assigned based on seniority. And then you would see an establishment of a side letter or another memorandum of understanding that would then list all of the parameters adding Newark as a base. So again, just wanted to clear that up a little bit as to why you don't see Newark in the contract listed in any of the areas in which you would see a base, and just also establishing that we have codified that it will no longer be a co-base for JFK. Only LaGuardia at this time will continue to be a co-base. Hope that clears some confusion up for you, and take it away, Taisha.
All right, thank you, Sonia. That was Sonia Boston, negotiating team representative covering bases. Our last article we are unpacking is Article 8, rescheduling. That is going to be in your hymnals, page 29. That is going to be unpacked by Stacy. I'm going to hand it off to Stacy. Stacy is our JFK New York negotiating team rep. Thank you, Stacy.
Hi, everyone, and we'll hope for better connectivity today. So the reschedule article, this is hugely important, major item of concern. And this is something where, again, the non-disciplinary grievance is so important because this is what upholds all of this. So we're going to start with, we'll just go through it in order, I suppose. Displaced per management, that is a code that you see when management has chosen to take you off of a pairing. It has nothing to do with your trip being delayed or some other aircraft needing a crew. This is, they want to do training, promotional things, inaugural flights, special assignments. So for starters, if the IFC is removed from the entire pairing, that IFC will be released from all further duty for that pairing footprint. You're not going to be displaced per management and put on reserve. Because that is their choice to do that. It has nothing to do with operational need. And then if you go, a lot of it's self-explanatory, so we'll hit the highlights. Displaced pairings and segments for recognition flying and proficiency flying do require IFC consent. And what that means is they're not going to take your sweet layover that you bid for and held and say, oh, we want to recognize somebody, or we want to, do some kind of promotion, and all of a sudden you're not on your beautiful layover that you wanted, so that management can work on it instead. And if you are removed from a portion of your pairing, you are going to be provided with a hotel overnight at no cost, even in base. The next item is fatigue. And this establishes that we have the ability to use fatigue. It outlines the procedures. And of course, as mentioned elsewhere in the contract, we will have a member on the committee. They will have a vote, and the union will have ayes. So there will not be improper denials of fatigue that we won't know about. And that is extremely powerful. It's a 1-2 punch there. Another item that should be noticed is that an IFC who calls fatigue will be reassigned in accordance with the disrupted IFC in Article 8. And what that means is you will call out for your next pairing. And that goes in hand with you can only call for your next scheduled pairing. So you're going to call out for your next pairing, or your next leg, your next segment. You can't anticipate, I'm going to be fatigued tomorrow morning, or I'm going to be fatigued in 5 hours for the next leg. You call out fatigue for the next segment that's happening based on the symptoms that you're having at the time. and then you will immediately be released to rest, and you cannot be reassigned anything else until you have had your contractual rest. The next thing is kind of a big concept for us. We have divided out disrupted and non-disrupted, and these have different sets of rules, so they're worth noting. Disrupted is your pairing is the problem. Your pairing is delayed. You're just, you're disrupted in some way because it's your pairing. So this outlines the restrictions around your originally scheduled pairing footprint, and this is why, of course, that definition in Article 4 is so important. Once again, per H6, if the reason that the pairing is split into multiple pairings in your base, then you will get a hotel and your per diem will continue. And I said if the reason, it's if the reassignment splits, sorry. So your hotel will be accommodated and your per diem will continue. Any pairing assigned from an RSL must fall within the OSP footprint. The next item is non-disrupted IFC. So a non-disrupted is when some other pairing gets messed up. Your pairing's fine, and it's the other pairing. That crew got delayed somewhere, stuck somewhere, and now they don't have a crew for this flight. So they're taking you off your perfectly good pairing and putting you on theirs. Let's see. So first of all, they're not going to be doing this unless all legal and available airport standbys at that base have been utilized. That is provable, that is grievable. And that is an emergency on the company's part, basically. And of course, any kind of assignment into your vacation day is prohibited. Those vacation days are protected. A non-disrupted IFC will not be placed on RSL, and that means, say you had a really nice 3-day, that nice layover again, and they pull you off to cover a turn. That means you cannot be placed on RSL for the remaining 2 days of your footprint. So that's a fantastic protection because we've heard of those stories happening. You can only be reassigned to that one pairing that is in immediate need, that is the company's emergency. Moving down to red-eye restrictions, a red-eye segment is a new definition, and that is a flight segment that's scheduled to operate 2 or more hours within the red-eye period on either end. So from 1 a.m. local to 5 a.m. base local, that's your red-eye segment. And you'll notice throughout the contract, we have mentions of red-eye segments where previously a red-eye had to be the entire duty period. Junior assignment is there's a little bit of a change to that. We do have that this is a assignment into your time off. It is different from reassignment, and this serves as your definition for positive contact as well for anywhere throughout the contract. That's your telephone contact at your primary number, in person only. So crew services or leadership can come to the airport. They can assign an airport's crew member to come to the aircraft on their behalf, or jet crew with IFC acknowledgement. Then further down, again, a lot of this is self-explanatory. If you are junior assigned and you report sick at that time, you may be required to produce verification, a doctor's note within 48 hours. And if you do so, you will not be charged under the dependability program. It is worth noting, no IFC is required to be contactable on their time off. So keep that in mind. If you are feeling unwell, you would not be answering the phone anyway. An IFC who is JRA'd out of their home city will receive positive space travel back to her or his home city at the end of the assignment if requested. And please make sure that you look to Article 23, which is compensation, V and Z for rates, duty rig that applies to junior assigning, that's new, and pay for out of base assignments. And again, VPTO or APTO is protected. You will not be JRA'd while on your vacation time. Something that was discussed before, but we'll just touch on it again really quickly. No reassignments will be built with less than the 45-minute turn time or the 35-minute turn time. And if turn times become shortened by irregular operations, which occur after the IFC has been rescheduled, then the assignment remains legal, but the company will not schedule unrealistic turn times in order to keep the IFC legal. And once again, realistic and unrealistic are provable and grievable. We all know how long it takes to walk from one place to another. We all know that you can't turn a plane in 14 minutes. So a delay, yes, legal. Schedule, reschedule, modify. They cannot reschedule, modify, or assign you any pairing that has a 14-minute turn time when you know you're bumping up against that 14-hour duty day just to keep you legal. The next day reserve assignment process, the RSLs can be auto-released. I believe we touched on that on another day. So you can be auto-released, or you can be then that is with pay protection. Sorry, that's with pay protection when they are above the required reserve minimums. And again, you're responsible for monitoring your schedule. When a level 2 occurs, you will get a jet crew notification, and you will be expected to self-notify of any changes before the end of your duty period. And that is as it is today. But we added that international destinations where no cellular connectivity exists are exempt from this requirement. Changes to report times. When changing to a report time with less than 2 hours before report time, they must have your concurrence, and that is because you would already be on your way. So of course you can't have your duty day extended once you're already on your way. That's just not fair. When there is a delay of more than 2 hours, you will be notified by electronic means. There's no more showing up to the airport and your flight's massively delayed, or the pilots were notified and we weren't. That stops. And there was some concern about the language about if the hotel doesn't provide transportation, the IFC will concur the expense for transportation. It's nothing shady. It's an IROP if that's occurring, and things happen in IROPs. Crew services might be busy. If for some reason they have not arranged your transportation, this just codifies that you will be reimbursed. And the UNF is something that we have today, and it is kind of if you have a turn, you're not expected to be on a layover. You're probably not going to have child care or elder care or whatever it is that you need. So it's kind of it's like a once a year get out of jail free card for the people that are not ordinarily away from home. RSL and RLSB, a lot of it is self-explanatory. Again, we want to hammer home, no line holder airport standby without concurrence. Line holders on RSL or LSB will not be reassigned past the OSP footprint unless in a level 2 or higher. And again, that is that OSP footprint in the definitions. That is so important. You can request to drop RSL without pay protection. And you may request to be released with pay protection up to 72 hours prior, and the company will not unreasonably withhold this. And unable to return to base, that's J. If they are unable to return you to base and you wind up being deadheaded home, it is at the IFC's sole discretion to self-deadhead, meaning the company cannot deny you a self-deadhead if they are deadheading you home outside of your original limitations. And then the aircraft equipment change, again, big topic of conversation in the last year. If they are down gauging the aircraft and now they have an extra IFC, if their assignment of the IFC is to release or to displace to deadhead, they will take the senior person off of the crew, notwithstanding qualifications. Any other assignments, so any assignment to reserve or to another flight will be done in reverse seniority order. This is not contingent on how far in advance or IROP level or anything. You will always know that if you are the senior person on the crew, you will be the one who is released or deadheading, and if they are reassigning, then it goes to the junior crew member. If you hold a special qualification, so obviously they can't let you go if there's a leg that requires a speaker or a leg that requires mint, you will remain on regardless of seniority. But if there is more than one of you, the more junior will be used and the more senior will be released or displaced to deadhead. And then there is a chart in the event of upgauging, and you can read that for yourselves. And that is the extent of reschedule. Sorry, it was a long one, but it's worthwhile. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Stacy just unpacked rescheduling, article number 8. That concludes all of our article unpacking for this town hall. We're going to move on. We have no items to clarify or correct, so that part of the agenda is empty for this town hall. We're going to move forward to polls, submitted questions from the website. So we're going to start with those questions. I also had Travis open up our chat so that crew members can submit questions during this live town hall that are especially related to the articles that we just unpacked today. If there is a possibility that that article or question needs to be researched, that question will be rolled over to our next town hall and will be addressed in our next town hall. Again, if there are questions that the negotiating team feels need more researching and attention to, those questions will be unanswered and left to be answered in our next town hall. So we're going to move on to our first question. That is going to be answered by Brendan. And if the question is, can you further explain scope? Scope is super important in our TA2, and I'm happy to open up this question for Brendan. Brendan is our Los Angeles negotiating team representative. Welcome, Brendan.
Thanks, Taisha. And like you said, scope is such an important part of our scope article is such an important part of the contract, and I'm glad that the question was asked. And so our scope article, which I'm sure we'll get into a detailed breakdown on another call, but just to summarize briefly, that scope protects our work. And so the scope article protects us and provides us job security that we don't have currently as at-will employees. Scope not only prevents the company from outsourcing our work to contracted flight attendants, it prevents wet leases, it prevents the company from merging or acquiring another airline or parts of an airline and letting us go and using other flight attendants to do our work. Obviously, if it doesn't matter what our pay rates are or our work rules are or our anything in the contract, if the company is able to outsource our work to someone else and would no longer be us flying those flights. And furthermore, we have particularly important language in the scope article about the exclusivity of flying, meaning that any JetBlue flight operated by a JetBlue pilot will be also operated in the cabin by JetBlue flight attendants. And so that is an extremely important protection, strong protection that we were able to win in this agreement, and one that should weigh heavily on the decision about ratification, because currently we do not have those protections, and our employment status is precarious based on our at-will status as employees. I think that covers it. There may have been another question, Taisha, about if.
Yes. So what happens when the company wishes to make rule changes outside our contract?
Right. Yes, I think there is I think this is referring to a language about the company being able to make changes to company policy. So certainly the company can make changes to company policy based on their needs. However, importantly, the company cannot make any changes to company policy that either violate the terms of our collectively bargained agreement, our contract, or even the spirit of the contract. And Furthermore, given those, not only can it not violate our contract, but also we have the ability under our contract to grieve any changes to company policy. And this is an important issue because even understanding the grievance process, oftentimes we focus on violations of the contract or disciplinary issues, and we forget about the fact that the grievance procedure can be used to grieve company policy, whether it's a violation of the contract, certainly, but if it's a violation of well-documented past practice, can be subject to a grievance. If it's determined to be, if our union determines that it's unfair and burdensome, the policy can be grieved. So it's not just a violation of the contract that is grievable. And so, for example, if the company made a change to our attendance policy, for example, that our union felt was unfair and unjust, we could take that issue to an arbitrator to argue in front of an arbitrator that the changes were burdensome and unfair and unjust. So scope is certainly an majorly important article for everybody to wrap their heads around, and is certainly one to review.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Our next question that was pulled from the website: why did the union agree to only 5 or 6 year recall rights if furloughs happen? This question is going to be answered in its entirety by Stacy, and they're also asking about occupational seniority. So I'm going to hand this off to Stacy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So the question as to why we agreed to 5-year recall rights is, it's not out of the ordinary. Only American has it unstated. United and Spirit are 6, and Alaska and Southwest are both at 5, same as us. So 5 is pretty normal. We also do have some really nice recall bypass rights and other protections in our furlough and recall article. So there are places where we actually come out ahead. Now, as far as how seniority applies to furlough and recall, first of all, your base, your qualification, your cadre, they are irrelevant in a furlough. It must be done by occupational seniority and occupational seniority only. Anything else is a violation of the contract. Management, supervisors, support roles will not displace any IFC in a furlough. I cannot say that strongly enough. No one will displace a line IFC in a furlough. This is in Article 5, again, occupational seniority. If they were to come back to the line and they would have been furloughed at their seniority, they will be furloughed. If they would not have been, no junior IFC will be displaced or furloughed to make room for them. And that's as simple as that.
That concludes that question. Our next question is for Brendan. This is regarding 401. Can the company take the 5% from us since there isn't any amount listed in our TA? This is going to go to Brendan. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Taisha. I think this is in reference to our retirement benefits, specifically the 401k matching 5% that we currently have under company policy. And so in our retirement benefits article, that is, did you mention it? I'm sorry, it's Article 27. You'll see that we will have the same, under the language that we have agreed to, we will have the same retirement health insurance and other benefits as offered to all company employees except for the pilots. So if the company were to make a change there, it would have to be a company-wide policy change. All company employees under the same retirement benefits, those things would change for the entire company. So we're protected in that way, that the company can't make changes to our retirement benefits specifically. That change would have to be a company-wide change.
That concludes our polls from the website. We're now going to move on to some of the live Q&A that can be answered in this specific town hall. And those that I read out that the negotiating team feels needs extra research, those will be rolled over again into the next town hall as per protocol. Our first question was sent anonymously. This is directed to Sonia. Could Sonia review what was changed for reserve responsibilities for onboard leads and mint support people? I believe the number of reserve days is increasing, but wanted to confirm that it is correct. Thank you.
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. So our current reserve requirements did change with the new work rules for qualified roles that took place in July of 2021. So we were able to make some improvements to that. So again, so currently on our reserve days, we can be utilized for a non-qualified role positions. That'd be the F3 or the F4 on a mint aircraft. So that's our current work rule. What we were able to do was get junior assignment pay for that. So if you are assigned flying outside of your qualified role on any given day, that will get you junior JRA pay. And then during a level 2 or higher, when they can utilize us in any position on any aircraft, we also got the JRA pay. So the work rule itself to be utilized in a non-qualified role flying position, that is current company policy. We were able to get us some additional pay for that. So that has not changed the work rule itself. As far as the reserve blocks, so while they have increased, there can now be 3, 4, 5, and 6 day blocks. We have to think about the adequate base staffing. So if we want the qualified roles program to grow, the company is going to need to have reserve blocks that can fulfill all of the IFCs in the program. So if they want to add a 6 day block, and that's not something that's interesting to you, don't bid for a 6 day block. You know, I mean, some people like longer days because of the 5 hour per day guarantee for the reserve days. So yes, reserve day options have gone up to 6, but it's not a requirement for you to bid for a 6 day if that doesn't work for your schedule. And I think, and the number of reserve days, so again, just 3 through 6. And we were able to just codify the airport standbys as well for us so that there could not be more than 3 in a row and more than 6 per month. So that's for some of the reserves maybe that we'll get for down the road if we have more reserve days added there. But I think I answered the question there, Taisha. I thought there might have been one other part to it, but there's not.
Yep. Okay, perfect. There was a question that was talked about. This isn't about the articles talked about today, but if there is time, I would love to know about reduced lower lines. How many hours per year are needed to maintain health insurance benefits, and are they average? Dee, are we pushing this, or can this be answered today?
No, I can answer it.
Okay.
So is that the one from Natalie?
Yes.
Hello, Natalie Lynch. How are you?
Hi.
Oh, there you are. So anyway, so if you're a full-time flight attendant, there is no eligibility for insurance. You are automatically eligible for insurance. If you choose to fly a reduced credit window every single month of the year, you would be considered a part-time flight attendant and flight crew member. And that's when the eligibility look back comes in. So what you would have to do, Natalie, if you were to choose that option, you would have to fly an average of 65 hours a month for the whole year. That doesn't mean every single month. It just means you would fly 35 and then maybe bump yourself up to 65 some months, just as long as if you wanted to be eligible for insurance, you'd have to meet that number, 65 times 12, which is 780.
All right, and what is the percentage, D, of those who of available reduced the correct language, reduced credit flying? What is the percentage available for that specific group?
So it is in our contract. That type of a flying option, which will be one of your choices, it would be monthly choice, as we always bid every single month, would now be reduced credit flying, minimum, target, or maximum. So that's where the choice is. 7% of every base will be offered reduced credit flying. 7%.
We should say a minimum.
A minimum, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, a minimum.
Mhm.
A minimum of
Yeah, no,
7%.
No,
Could
it's
be more,
important. Yeah. Go
could
ahead.
be more, whatever the company's operational needs are, but it would never be less. Thanks for the correction, Brenda.
All right. Our next question is from David Figueroa. Why a 5-year contract versus a shorter term? Also, why a lump sum payment versus a pay increase? Is that a question that can be answered on this town hall, or can it be pushed?
I can take it.
Okay, that's going to Ernesto.
It's what you said it was from Mr. David.
Yep, David Figueroa.
I hope all is well. I hope this finds you well. Well, like I said, as far as the 5-year contract, that's one of those areas where the company was just weren't at their stellar to try to negotiate in good faith. It's just wasn't something they were trying to bite on. I remember the last time around, we believe we had offered a 3 and they pushed us over to 7. And it's something that we're just pretty stubborn with. They didn't want to go anywhere with it. So, we were able to meet at a happy meeting with the 5-year contract. And like I said, like was mentioned earlier, one of us had mentioned earlier, might have been Sonia or Stacy, that is pretty standard, industry standard, So we met at a 5-year. And like I said, that does include the 180-day early opener to start negotiating for our second contract and get that ball rolling right away, start filing off the summaries for that. And as far as the lump sum payment, that goes back to, I believe is what D has covered in the past in pretty good detail. The company was pretty much dead set on not adding any additional costs for 2022. They just were not willing to entertain it. So the lump sum payment, which isn't a signing bonus, I know contrary to popular belief, it's not. That was just their way to put forward a little something to offset the fact that we wouldn't get any contractual raise until 2023. So that's pretty much what that is. Like I said, it's pretty much their anything, like I've mentioned in the past, and a lot of us have mentioned in the past, anything compensation wise, they were pretty much, just they weren't easy to work with at all. Let's just say that. And I don't have to mince words about it, but they just weren't like. And according to our CFO, I want to say just this past month, October, threw out some numbers that we weren't as profitable as we had hoped to be in our third quarter, and he was pretty much preparing for some of the same in our fourth quarter. To put on top of that, $50 million pre-tax loss, fuel costs, and so on and so forth. So they had all the reason in the world to say, no, for 2022, we're going to push this for 2023. So that's where that lump sum payment comes in. So hope that helps.
Yeah, and Ernesto, if I could just follow up, Taisha.
Please.
Yeah, you covered it well, but I would just, one more thing is they told us at the table that the 2022 adding costs, like you said, was not in the cards from their perspective, because they had added costs in the budget already. But they also told us if I think it's important for all of the in-flight crew members to know, they also told us that they have Wall Street analysts that they have to answer to. And so, they're worried about what Wall Street analysts and investors think about their cost structure. That was a driving factor in their inability to or unwillingness to add costs in the year 2022. So I think that may provide some added context and some added understanding for some in-flight crew members on why that's the way it is.
All right, thank you, Brendan. This next question, question number one, the first one sent from Jaleesa. What happens to our Healthy Rewards program? Will full-time and part-time crew members be eligible for health insurance? That was already answered. And yeah, so the other question that was asked by Jaleesa is what happens to our Healthy Rewards program? I don't think that was listed in the TA, so that is why she asked that question. Thank you. Can anyone answer that one?
Sure, Taisha. Yeah, or did you go ahead, Stacy? Do you want to?
It's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, no, the Healthy Rewards program will continue the way it is under our current insurance benefits, unless the company makes a change to the entire company policy when it comes to the plan. Those benefits under our under Article 27 are protected. So our Healthy Rewards program will continue.
All right, thank you. As a housekeeping note, there is similar language as it relates to our profit sharing. Our profit sharing is triggered if any other department also gets profit sharing. Just want to leave that as a housekeeping note. Our last question is, would we still be able to get a raise? So the question is, if a contract is ratified, does the contract have the ability to be reopened at any point and have our salary renegotiated over the duration of the contract? Can that question be answered now, or does it need to be pushed? Would we still be able to get a raise or have our salary edited even though we have a contract?
I think we can answer that.
can.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah.
All right, Stacey?
Absolutely. And I, not having had the chance to peek where that is in the contract, but we do have provisions in the contract that, first of all, we can always do side letters. We can always do LOAs, MOUs. There are provisions in compensation where it says they can add productivity flying or productivity pay elements or increase mint. And those will become contractual if they increase the payments for mint. Again, those are built in. We also have just a catch-all that anytime that the company and the union want to get together and work out some kind of improvement, we can do so. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. So I can't say that they will do it, but I can't, and I won't say that they're prevented from doing it. That is always within the ability with the union. They can come to us at any time, of course, and say, we'd like to give you money. We're going to say yes.
All right, and we're going to end that sentence by ending our meeting. And I'm going to give you back actually 2 more minutes of your time over this Thanksgiving holiday break. And we would like to thank everyone. With that last question that just came in, will be rolled over into the next town hall. We would like to thank everyone for attending this town hall number 6, 11/27/21 at 1 p.m. And we hope to see you tomorrow. And we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and good evening.